Welcome to Michael's Kids Club Winter Workshop. Today we will use clay and paint to make a fox trinket tray. Join us for all 12 days of merrymaking. Enjoy!
My name's Megan, and today I'm going to show you how to make this clay trinket tray. Isn't it cute? We're first going to take a template. So if you have a minute, go ahead and print out this template and put it to the side. In order to make the tray itself, we're going to be using Model Magic. Then once the tray is complete, we're going to paint it. So anytime you have your acrylic paints, you're going to need some paint brushes. I'm also going to have a cup of water and some paper towels. And for this project, you're also going to want a pencil and a pair of scissors. That's everything you'll need. I'm going to begin by cutting out this template. This template can be a fox or it could be a wolf, kind of depending on what colors and what you add to the picture. But I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut around the big shape. Here are the ears. I'm going to go around those. And it dips in the middle of the head and then comes back up to make another ear around the side of the head and round it across the bottom. So now I have the outline of the wolf or the fox that I'm going to be creating. And the next thing I want to do is grab some of my Model Magic. So in this package, I'm going to grab about half and rip it off. And then I'm going to take the Model Magic and I'm going to kind of knead it in my hands and play with it for a little bit. It's really fun to squish back and forth, squeeze it between your fingers, get it working, get it ready to go. Then I'm going to use a paper plate. You're welcome to do this on your table, but I'm going to use a paper plate and it's going to kind of help me keep it in one place. So now we're going to flatten our Model Magic. So in order to flatten our Model Magic, I'm going to kind of press it down like a pancake with my hands. Then I'm going to peel it up and flip it over. I'm going to press it down again. I'm going to peel it up and flip it over. And I'm going to press it down again. And I'm going to keep flipping and pressing until I get the piece of Model Magic large enough to be able to make this face. So it looks like I need mine to be just a little bit bigger so that the face can fit on. So I'm pressing it, I'm peeling it up, I'm flipping it over, making it flat like a pancake. And now it's large enough to be able to fit my wolf face. I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to trace around the face. So here's my pencil and I'm gently tracing around. And it's okay if you make an indentation instead of making a mark with your pencil. As long as you have a line to kind of be able to look at, that's all that you're going to need. So now that I've gone around the face, I can peel this back off and you see the shape I left. Now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut around the shape to make the base of my trinket tray. So I'm actually going to cut into the Model Magic with my scissors. Pretty cool. It's a really fun texture to kind of cut through. It's pretty soft and easy to cut. Then I'm going to go up towards the other ear. I'm going to go around the side of the face. There we go. And I'm cutting off all of the extra Model Magic and kind of letting it drop onto my plate or onto my desk, onto my table. And there's the outside shape of your trinket tray. The next step is going to make a large roll that's going to be able to snake all the way around the outside of your trinket tray. So I have this remaining Model Magic and I can always grab some more from my pack and add that into my pile, squish it between my fingers, kind of knead it, get it ready to go. And then I can start making a really long coil or a really long snake. So notice how I'm just moving my hands back and forth and kind of stretching this clay or this Model Magic into a really long line. And this really long line is going to snake all the way around the outside of the shape we just cut out in order to create this trinket dish. So we need the little lip of the dish so that if you put some change or you put some jewelry or you put some keys into this tray, the tray is going to hold them. So I'm moving this snake or this coil down, and I'm trying to keep it as even as I can. It's not going to be perfect, but I'm going to try and keep it so that it's all about the same thickness. And then once I have this really, really long coil, I'm going to see if I can wrap it all the way around. So I'm going to start at the bottom. I'm going to rip this part off because it's not quite as thick as the other part. I'm going to start at the bottom. Now, once you press it down, it really sticks to the other piece and you're not going to be able to get it back up, or it's going to be difficult to get it back up. So I'm going all the way around. And when you get back to the beginning, you can use your scissors to snip and kind of attach these two together as best you can. And there we go. This is going to hold all of our items into our tray. And I'm just going to kind of use my finger and go all the way around to kind of smooth out all the sides. Make sure that this coil is attached to the tray. And I think it looks great. So we're going to now move on to the next step where we're going to be painting. Now you can paint on the Model Magic while it's still not quite dry. So it's okay to go ahead and paint on it now, or you can leave it and then come back to it in a little bit and paint on top of it once it is dry. That part is completely up to you. Okay, so now that I'm gonna start painting, I have a couple of paints. I'm gonna use a gray for the top. I'm gonna use a white if I need to or want to cover up the white that's already the Model Magic. I'm gonna use a little bit of pink for the inside of the ears, and I'm gonna use a little bit of black. I also have some napkins or paper towels, and I have a little cup of water so I can kind of rinse out my brush when I need to. And I do have a bunch of paintbrushes. So I'm going to be painting on this paper plate. Make sure that you have a piece of scrap paper or something so that you don't get paint onto your table, and then you're going to be ready to paint as well. So notice how on the wolf we have this big black nose, we have the gray top, and we have the white bottom. So we're going to start by kind of making this line going across in order to break it into the section that's gray and break it into the section that's white. So if you still have your little guy, you can kind of make yourself a little guide just by putting a pencil line here and a pencil line here. And then you can imagine connecting those pencil lines together. And this is going to break you into the top half being gray and the bottom half being white. So you can barely see it, but there's just a little bit of a pencil line to kind of give me an idea where to stop my gray and where to start my white. Now, if you've never used your acrylic paint, there will be a little plastic seal on the top. So once you twist off the cap, you're going to have to peel that back. But then once you have your paint open, go ahead and dip one of your paint brushes into the paint and go ahead and start painting the top portion gray. Now we're going to paint the top portion, including the part that's going to be the part that makes it into the tray, this top part that's 3D. And you want to get all the way into the corners and into all the cracks. And you're going to do a nice straight line as best you can going across the top of the face to make it into those two distinct colors, the gray and the white. I'm going to paint up here by the ears. I'm going to paint on this coil that goes all the way around. And I'm going to even kind of move it, and I'll twist this around so I can see it better to do the outside as well. And remember, you can paint while your Model Magic is still drying, or you can wait until after it's already dried and it will work both ways, which is really nice. This looks pretty good. So I've made a really nice gray coat, but you can see that I don't have any gray around the edges or around the outside. So I'm going to start moving some of the gray all the way around the outside. And I'm glad I have this paper plate underneath so that I'm not going to get any of my paint onto my table. Make sure you're using a scrap piece of paper or something like that in order to protect your surface. And I'm all the way around on the second ear. And you can see I still have a little bit over here to do with my gray. And that is looking pretty good. And then I want to go over one more time and make a really nice straight line that kind of distinguishes the gray part from the white part. So here's a nice line of gray paint and a really nice paint line. And then I'm ready to clean out my brush and move on to my white color. So to clean out my brush, I like to put my brush into a cup of water and kind of dance it around in the cup of water, maybe paint the bottom of your cup with your paintbrush to kind of get some of that gray paint off of it. And then I'm going to wipe it onto a paper towel, and I kind of paint on the paper towel until I stop seeing the gray color show up on my paper towel. And that's how I know that my brush is pretty clean and we're ready to move on to the next color. So now that I have my brush clean, I can move on to the white color. You can also switch to a different paintbrush if you'd like. Maybe you want to use an even bigger, thicker brush for the white portion. So I'm taking some white paint, and it's just a little bit different from the white that's already there. And I'm going to go all the way around the same way I did with my gray. And I'm going to put white around the outside of the bottom of this wolf's face as well. If you wanted to make this look more like a husky, like a dog, you could make it black and white. Or if you wanted to make it look more like a fox, you could use like an orange color. Or you can use the gray like I'm making to kind of make it look like it could be a wolf, it could be a dog. There's lots of different things that it could actually kind of look like. And I'm going to make a nice line. Got a little bit of my gray, but I'll fix it. Going across. And that is looking great. So once I have that done, I can clean out my white brush. I'm done with my white and I'm done with my gray. I'm going to move on to the little tiny ears in the corner. So look at how the ears are just little triangles that are going to go on top of the gray that's already there. So I am going to use a much smaller brush to kind of get a little tiny triangle in there. With this light pink, I'm going to try and make a triangle here. And I'm going to make a triangle here. Excellent. And a couple more details. Let's go ahead and make the black details. We have two eyes, we have a big nose, and a cute little mouth. So I'm going to start with the big nose. And if you want to, you can always kind of keep looking back at your guide and you can figure out, see how the big nose goes on top of the crossover line. So we're going to have part of it in the gray and a big portion of it in the white section. So I'm going to use one of my brushes again. And I'm going to use the black paint to kind of draw the nose. So I'm going to clean out my brushes, make sure I get some of that pink paint off of my brush. And I'm going to start by outlining it kind of in a thin paintbrush, and then I'm going to move on in order to fill it in. So I'm going to draw it. And if you don't feel comfortable drawing it with your paint, you can wait until this dries and you can always trace it. But here's a line that goes on top of the nose. So it goes pretty far across the face and then it starts curving down. And then we're going to do the part that goes underneath into the white. And it goes pretty far down. And it comes to like a point or a rounded point in the middle. And notice how my rounded point is kind of right below those ears. And once you have the shape that you like, then you can start to fill it in with more of your black paint in order to make that beautiful black nose. Now, if you made a nose and you're not quite happy with it, you can wait until it dries, and then once it dries, you can paint the black over with white and gray and try it again. So what's nice about paint is that if you let it dry, you can do layers, and you can cover up any old mistakes and try it again. Now I'm going to do 2 little black eyes. So they're just going to be kind of like a brush stroke down and a brush stroke down, about the thickness of my paintbrush. And then I'm going to make a little smile down here in the white. And believe it or not, we're done. So I'm going to let this paint dry, and then I'm going to have my very own Trinket tray in order to collect all of my little goodies and put them in here. So I hope you had fun making this winter workshop project, and please come back and make all of the winter workshop projects with us. See you soon. Bye.